your host, Sophia. And today, my guest is Dominika, and I did not ask her how to say her last name, so I'm going to do my best. Asare.
Yeah, you nailed it.
Okay. Dominika is the founder of Dominion Fitness. She works with female executives 40 plus to help them improve their metabolism, hormones, and manage what happens in peri and postmenopause. So I think she is the perfect guest for this audience because I know a lot of us are going through it.
That's right.
So tell me, tell me a little bit about you and how you got started. What made you say, you know what? I'm going to start learning about hormones and talk about menopause and perimenopause.
Absolutely. Yes, I should mention, my background is biology, pharmacology. I was always a bit of a nerd. And so the topic of, yeah, I suppose, women's health and just human health, that was always something that I was interested in.
Mm,
So that's what I chose to study at university. Now, after university, I very much followed, what I studied, so pharmacology. I went deeper in women's health specifically. So women's health pharmacology, meaning, different disorders, medical conditions specific to women. And then also, medications that can then help manage those conditions. So I work in pharma for many years. But then I suppose what was happening at that point is that, well, I went through a lot myself in terms of hormonal issues and everything else. And also, seeing women being prescribed medication for conditions that could be easily managed with better lifestyle,
mhm.
better nutrition, better physical activity. But uh, all medications always come with side effects. So
Right.
oftentimes you would see, one condition is being managed, but then suddenly we see side effects of that, right? So your good examples, if we're talking about hormones, if you're thinking about, let's say, hormonal replacement or your usual, the pill, right? So many of us go on a pill,
Mhm.
but then so many of those contraceptives, then they would cause you to increase your appetite, for example, and therefore further down the line, you might see weight gain. And that's just an example. And that's a very benign example, I would say. Yeah. I've seen really many, many women just going through many conditions, trying to manage them with medication and then developing other ones. So I suppose at that point, I was like, this is just not working. I don't believe in it. And I just couldn't stay in the industry that I didn't fully believe. And don't get me wrong, because, pharmaceuticals, life changing, right? We see so many new medications for conditions that are groundbreaking and life saving. But at that point, I just wanted to start something myself where the mission was and still is to help women get to a point when they have hormonal balance, better metabolism, they can manage their lifestyle, their health
Mhm.
without relying on prescription medication.
Well, and that just makes sense. And one thing that you said that I didn't really know about the pill, because I do know that I did gain weight when I was on the pill, but I didn't realize that there was a direct correlation between being on it and it increasing my appetite. Because, I was in college and just burning the midnight oil and eating it all kinds of times of the day and night. But I didn't realize that, hey, this is also a contributing factor to what's happening. So, I mean, in hindsight, I didn't stay on it that long, but I didn't realize what it was actually doing either because there's no real disclosure. The doctor doesn't say, "Oh, by the way, when you get on this, here's what's going to happen."
Yeah, and you see that's a massive issue with not just with contraceptives, but with medications in general. But currently I'm reading a fantastic book. Anyone who is on contraception or hormonal replacement, definitely I would recommend it. It's called The Pill Changes Everything. I think that's the exact name, but we can just put it maybe somewhere in the whatever notes for the episode. But basically the book is about how female hormones are like so interlinked with so many things in our lives,
Hmm.
meaning that as soon as you start changing those and impacting those, modifying them, it's gonna have impact on so many things. So it's not that we just, prevent pregnancy, but it's gonna impact, as we said, your appetite levels, you know, even your mood. You might see more or less mood swings. Again, appetite, how sensitive you are. And there's just so much information that unfortunately, as you said, there's no disclosure from your doctor when they put you on the pill. So many of us, I don't know when you were put on the pill. I think I started contraception when I was maybe 17 or 18. And let me tell you, if anyone told me what I read in this book and well, not just in this book, but through all the learning that I've done so far on hormones, I really, really doubt that now I would get on that pill.
Right. Right. Well, hindsight's always 2020. And it
Ah,
it
yes,
did the jobs that we wanted it to do.
absolutely.
It just didn't know all the downline effects that it would have.
The costs, the cost that yeah, that it has in terms of your health and in terms of, both mental and physical impacts that it might have.
So, what are some of the things like when you're working with women, they
Mm.
come in and, you know, it's like, I've never been an anxious person. Now I have. I'm feeling anxious all the time. Or I walk into a room and I completely forget why I was there. So now I have to walk out and hope that when I walk back in, I'm going to remember why I went. So
Yeah.
when you start hearing things like that, what are some of the things that you find has helped the women that you've talked to and worked with?
Yeah. So, what you just mentioned are just some of the symptoms that we see during peri and postmenopause. So, I would say the most common ones, and the most, let's say, troubling for women that come and seek help at Dominion is brain fog is one of them, but I would say the most common one is that they see the weight gain.
Mm,
And usually they see the weight gain around the middle.
hmm.
Yeah. So the what's different now than it was before is that whatever they were doing when they were in their 30s or in their 20s, right now it's not gonna even touch that midsection.
Right.
It just doesn't work anymore. And so, they come to us and they're like, look, like 10 years ago, I could just go on a quick diet and I'll be all good. Right now, nothing seems to be helping and the weight keeps creeping up. They see the change in their not just on the scale, right? But just on in their physique, how they feel about their body, everything else. And this is related to the fact that during peri and postmenopause, your sex hormones change. So
Right.
because you've got less estrogen and progesterone, right? Your metabolism is going to slow down. The way you metabolize the food also slows down. And then also you will see your cortisol levels often being higher, which will then impact how easy it is for you to lose fat.
So
Yeah.
what are
This
oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Go
I
ahead.
was I was just gonna say, so yeah, so even the pattern where we store fat changes because of those hormonal changes. So if before menopause, maybe you would see the weight gain around your bottom, your hips. In menopause, you would see more of that around the middle.
Mm.
Now, to answer your question, because I know I went on a bit of a rant there, what are
That's
some
okay
things?
because you're getting good information.
what are some of the things that women can do to change that? So that's why I went on this run, so that you can understand that the biggest thing that changes is metabolism, pretty much,
Mm,
because we lose muscle mass, and again, because of the hormonal changes, metabolism is slower. So the biggest thing that we do for our ladies is working to optimize their metabolism and to reduce their cortisol. If I were to choose the main two things, like the big rocks, yeah. Now let's talk about the first big rock. How can we speed up your metabolism? We know from studies, it's widely known that muscle tissue is the metabolically active tissue, in a way that the more muscle mass you carry around your frame, the more calories you burn at rest, aka your metabolism is faster.
okay.
Yeah. So
So
if you're
strength training.
yes, that's exactly it. But it's not just strength training, because if you strength train, but your diet is not optimal for that purpose, you're not going to see muscle mass increasing. You're
Mm.
not going to see that toning. So, on that front of speeding up their metabolism, yes, we've got the strength training, but we also have the optimal nutrition. So, women eating enough protein and enough total calories so that they can build muscle.
And I know for me, I mean, so I'm only going to speak for me, but I'm sure there are other women sailing on my boat that it seems very difficult to get a lot of protein. So, I mean, and especially if you're not a big meat eater, because meat, everybody's like, well, eat more meat. And it's like, well, I don't really eat meat. I don't eat beef. I don't eat pork. So, that leaves me with chicken, fish, and uh turkey for me, and then tofu. And I know there's beans and
Mm.
quinoa, but sometimes just trying to put all that together is like, I don't know what I want to eat.
Yeah. Absolutely. And well, the way we go about it in our program is, because our program is personalized. So that means that, for example, if I don't know, your friend were to join a program and then you were to join a program, it's going to be completely different. So the
Mhm.
nutrition strategy is tailored to the given person. So what do we do about the protein? We first understand what are the foods that you like, what type of meals you like eating. And then within those meals, we tweak them in a way that allows you to hit your protein targets for the day.
Mhm.
Okay. So let's have an example. Gosh, give me your favorite meal or one of your favorites.
Oh my gosh, I don't even have a favorite meal. It's like, what do I have? Um, so okay, the thing that I was gonna cook yesterday that I didn't. I codfish. Um,
Mm. Mhm.
Codfish, I was gonna do codfish with
Yeah.
vegetables, and it all sounded really good until it got
Yeah.
really hot, and then I didn't cook.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, right. So let's take your fish with vegetables, right? So you tell us, okay, I love fish and vegetables. We would tell you exactly the portions that you should be eating of each of those ingredients.
Mm,
Yeah. We would potentially give you recipes for different dressings or different, what to add to that particular meal
mhm.
to make it high protein.
Okay,
Yeah. So that's how it works, because the it's exactly like you say, if someone just tells you eat more protein, how do I do that?
right,
Yeah. So it's about increasing your protein levels or making any changes that you need to do in your nutrition, but within what you're currently eating and how you and your household already eat, because that's the only way to make it stick.
right. So now I know a lot of people say, like, for vegans and vegetarians,
Mm.
it's even harder for them to get
Yes.
proteins. So
Yes.
is there a resource that you're aware of, and if there's not, that's fine,
Mm.
but
Mm.
that can tell you what things that you can put together to create a whole protein? because I know
Mhm.
there's a difference just between getting a protein and then having a whole protein.
Yes, 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 yes. So you're talking about the essential amino acids. So the issue with the not the issue, but the difference between the plant-based protein and your animal protein is that it doesn't. Not every plant-based protein will have all of those amino acids that you need,
Mhm.
which is why, exactly like you said, you need to combine different plant-based proteins to then have the full complete protein source, let's put it this way. Yeah. So I have many ladies who are vegan on the program, and then the way they do it is, again, like in the recipes that we use, we'll combine different sources of protein in the same meal. You ask whether there is a resource that tells you how to combine those. Plenty of websites. If you were to put how to combine plant-based protein in Google, like you're gonna have so many guides that yeah, ladies will be able to find that there. But again, it's much simpler than it actually seems.
Mhm.
Yeah. Now I can tell you myself, like I'm mostly plant-based. I would eat dairy occasionally. I don't eat meat at all. Um, and the way I do it is, apart from beans, tofu, all that stuff, I do supplement my protein with the protein powder, which is
Okay.
also an option.
Because I was going to ask you about that because I know eating whole foods is best.
Mhm.
However, I was going to go ahead and ask you about that part. And so now I kind of want to switch gears a little bit just
Yeah, yeah,
because um,
absolutely.
you were in pharmacology.
Yeah, yeah,
Now, when it comes to um, postmenopause, since for some women in perimenopause too, they get drier
yeah.
in nether regions.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, is there, that you know of, a natural remedy for that? Or are the creams, the prescription creams, the estradiol creams,
Yes, that's what I yeah,
are
yeah.
those like, are those something that you would recommend or not, based on what you know about them?
Yes. So, I should say many of our ladies do use those creams. Now, there are different creams that you can use, right? Because you do have the hormonal based ones, but many of our ladies use the natural ones.
Oh,
So, for example, you've got the coconut oil based creams, which don't which don't include hormones. And for some of the ladies who want to stay away from further, let's say, modifying their hormones, that might be a good option.
okay.
Yeah. So I would say, again, depending on how, because I suppose, when you're in peri and postmenopause, you have a choice. You can either use hormones, right? So you can supplement your hormones, because all of those changes are originally coming from the fact that now your natural hormones are reducing. So many of our ladies do go down the route of HRT, so your hormonal replacement,
Right.
through patches, tablets, many options. But then we have just as many ladies who don't use hormonal replacements, and they go with the natural route. So depending on what your audience prefers, that's something. I suppose the bottom line is there are options.
Right.
There are
Well,
natural
because I
options
know
and hormonal.
HRT isn't an option for everybody. But also
Mhm.
what I was wondering is like, okay, if I just use the cream as needed,
Yeah.
then obviously it's going to make a difference because it's going to do what it does. But it's
Mhm.
not, it's not a continuous pump through of additional estrogen.
Absolutely. Yes. And so in that way, it will be less, what's the word? It could be less impactful or strong if you do want to stay away from hormones. Because yeah, as you said, you use it locally. And not every single day. Yeah. Versus with HRT, where you've got the continuous, you know, I suppose, supply of external hormones.
So I do know, let me check the time because I know that you have another appointment, so we don't want to keep you too long. But I do know that you have a guide.
We still have a few minutes. We still have a few minutes. Don't worry.
I know you have a guide and you have an app. So can you
Yes.
tell us about your app and what it does?
Absolutely. Yes. So let's start with the app. So I should say the app is very much still in the let's say beta version. So we're still working on finalizing the app and everything else. But we will be running the beta testing. So if there are any of your ladies who actually want to test the app for free, please reach out, because we're gonna be kicking that off in July. So very soon. Now, let's talk about the app more. So you see, because the trends that we see in our practice at Dominion Fitness, it's many of those symptoms are, quite typical. So it's almost like we see few profiles, okay,
Mhm,
of ladies. Let's say some of them, their biggest struggle is that they feel anxious and wired and tired at the same time, all the time.
mhm,
Okay, they can't sleep. Another group, let's say they really struggle with weight gain. Okay. And then we've got another group that's actually completely fine, and they don't necessarily need any help with losing weight. They just want to stay strong for years to come.
mhm.
So for them, it's more about, let's say, prevention and long-term health. So the way the app works is it helps you to understand where you're at in terms of those kind of profiles, where based on your lifestyle, on your symptoms, and then based on your profile, it assigns the program to you. Program meaning the nutrition
Mhm.
and the exercise that will help you achieve your goals based on your symptoms and what you're struggling with.
Okay. Well,
Does
that's
that make sense?
yeah. That
Yeah.
sounds like a great app. So
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm willing to beta test at this point.
Yes, that's it, because I should also say the idea for the app, it came from the fact that most of the ladies that joined Dominion, they would have gone through so many different apps in their lives. They would try your, My Fitness Pal. Gosh, what else have you got there? Weight Watcher is not really an app, but it's another kind of the program type. Noom, so many different apps at the moment that theoretically help you with, eating healthier, losing weight. But the issue with most of these apps is that number one, it's not personalized to your symptoms.
Mhm,
It's not geared, adjusted to specifically to peri and postmenopause, because the exercise and the nutrition guidance is going to be so different for someone who is in their 30s or in their 20s and someone who is actively going through perimenopause or who is already in postmenopause. Yeah. So because we saw the gap,
mhm.
what was missing in all those other apps, that's why we came up with the idea for this app.
Well, that sounds really cool because yeah, you're right. Um, if you already have figured out what used to work, doesn't currently work, because obviously these because you're selling it to the masses, you can't just although, I mean, they could parse it off and say, if you're this age, we can look at the hormonal thing because that's a big deal. And especially you want to be able to lower cortisol, but when you're dealing with life and you're in even in postmenopause, you're dealing with life and what could have not been as stressful before now becomes extremely stressful. And or even if you don't feel the difference in stress, your body knows the difference, and so now your cortisol's like crazy high. And I don't know how that the cortisol being really high also plays into insulin resistance, because I know um, for a lot of people, as they get older and go into perimenopause and then postmenopause, that
Mm.
insulin resistance is more of an issue for them. So,
Yes. No, yeah. Mhm.
so is that something that's also addressed uh, either in the app or when someone's working with you in person?
Yes. So exactly like you said, cortisol can impact your insulin resistance. Yeah. Now we need to remember that cortisol is a stress hormone, right? So evolutionary, uh, you know, the cortisol is elevated so that your body can respond to a stressful situation.
Right.
But part of this response is the fact that it helps to produce more glucose and that kind of being released to your blood,
Mm,
right? So that you've got the, let's say, energy to kind of, to react. So
right.
the cortisol does what it should do, but the issue is that during peri and postmenopause, it's not counterbalanced by the sex hormones, which are now less.
Mm,
Yeah. So that's why one of the big things that we address in the app is the elevated cortisol, especially in one of the profiles for the ladies who typically, based on their symptoms, most 9 out of 10 times will have elevated cortisol. Yeah.
and
Did that answer your question?
yeah, so how do you actually address that? And then how do you um and this is all obviously very generalized because I know you said you do personalized programs, but then how do you reduce your cortisol and then also, well, pretty much eliminate insulin resistance? Like, because since they kind of work together, how do you bring them both down?
Okay. Do you know what? I think let's talk about cortisol first, because in terms of insulin resistance, it's a massive topic. And if you're someone who is insulin resistant, just reducing your cortisol levels might not be enough,
Mm,
right? Because most of the time, what we see is, for example, if you've been overweight for many years, or if, your diet is not necessarily where it should be, it's not, then you might be insulin resistant. Or genetically, you might be more prone to being insulin resistant. So I think let us park insulin resistant because it's a big, big, big topic. But cortisol does impact it in a way. So let's talk about how we can reduce cortisol, and then as a byproduct, it might help you reduce your insulin resistance.
okay.
So on the cortisol topic. So if you think about it, cortisol, it's the hormone that helps you in the fight or flight situation, stress hormone. If you're in a stressful situation, your cortisol will be elevated. And it's not that cortisol is bad in itself, but if it's chronically elevated, it is bad for you and for your health
Right.
long term. Yeah. So it's the chronic elevation, not the fact that we do have cortisol, because we need it.
Right. Right.
Right. Okay. So let's say that it's chronically now elevated, which often happens because, it's not just that the hormones are changing in peri and postmenopause, but when you think about the lifestyle of women in their late 30s, 40s, and early 50s, so many things happening. Very likely you've got a very stressful job. You probably have kids that now you're juggling. Yeah. So you might have the elderly parents that you're taking care of.
Hmm.
So the environment is perfect for high stress for women at this point in their lives, right? So what can we do to, let's talk about daily things that we can do to reduce it. Number one, what we often see in our ladies is they skip breakfast,
Hmm.
either because they don't feel hungry in the morning, or, they think, oh, I'm going to skip breakfast. It's going to help me limit the calories. Or they
Right.
do intermittent fasting. So they limit the eating window. But they don't know that in the morning, your cortisol usually raises by itself. It's just naturally. Now, the 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 signal that you can give to your body to say, okay, we're safe, it's okay, it's giving it a little bit of glucose. So
Mm,
giving it some food. So if
okay.
you're someone who is running on no breakfast, you start eating at 12, and we know that the cortisol is elevated the most in the morning, like you've got just cortisol running free for the first part of the day. And then you wonder, oh my goodness, why do I feel like wired all the time and stressed?
Okay.
Yeah. So one thing, so number one thing I would say, have a breakfast. Like eat something, breakfast. Just eat something within the first, you know, half an hour after you wake up.
Oh,
And
wow.
it does not
That early, half an hour after you wake up. So, and that's no matter what time you wake up.
half an hour, 45 minutes. And but remember, it doesn't have to be a, a full English breakfast, right? Or, your free course meal. Like you can just have a banana or an apple,
Mm, okay.
as long as you give your body something.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's tip number one. Tip number two, frequency of your food as well. Because oftentimes we see our ladies just going for hours and hours and hours without food.
Right.
It doesn't help with cortisol, and it can actually also increase it. Okay. So fasting for long hours, not good. So
Okay.
eating regularly is another thing that can help with that. And then the last thing I would say, that's, I would say, is the kind of the making sure that you get enough sleep and that you have in the evening, you properly wind down. Because what we often see is women who don't even get 6 hours of sleep through the night.
Hmm.
Yeah. And it's often because they're even, in the evening, they don't have a routine, they don't have anything to kind of calm themselves down a little bit, right? To prepare their body from stresses of the day. Okay, now we're actually going into the quiet mode.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, and the thing is, when you think about it, when you're kids, your parents most of the time had a bedtime routine for you. It's like, okay, it's time to go to bed. Let's go brush your
Read
teeth. Let's
read
read
you
a
a book, read you,
story.
yes, yeah,
Let's
yeah,
do
yeah.
and then, so the
We
whole
lose it
thing
as
is like
adults.
winding down. And then
Yes.
as an adult, you start doing that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And oftentimes what we do is we watch TV, we watch a action movie, and then we're asking our body to just switch off
Right.
next minute, right? So yeah, so what we often do is for our ladies, depending on different, different preference and everything else, we might have screen detox for an hour or two before bed. We might have journaling practice. We might have breathing exercise before. Yeah. So it's just doing things, and not just before you go to bed, but just throughout the day that calm your nervous system down.
Right.
Yeah.
It's almost like, I don't know. Well, I'm sure if people
Hmm.
listening are in this age range, they remember the clapper. So you clap on, clap off for the light. It's almost,
Yes.
that's what we want to do for our bodies. It's like, okay, bedtime.
Yeah. And then in the
Clap
morning.
off.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yeah. That's it. But it just doesn't work like that. But yeah, so I would say what might be useful is we can always put the link to the cortisol guide, because that's exactly why we created the guide for women who, feel wired all the time, whilst at the same time feeling exhausted. So we put all those tips around nutrition, around activity, everything else in the guide, so that your audience, your ladies can have a look there.
That's great. So if they want to get in touch with you directly, how do they do that?
Absolutely. Yes. So probably the easiest way would be for them to follow me or DM me at Dominika.Asare. That's our Instagram for Dominican Fitness.
Okay, perfect.
And to be fair, we always share a lot of information around cortisol and around peri and postmenopause on that Instagram profile as well. So we can just put the link there and they will find there everything they need.
Well, I got to tell you guys, that's how I found her.
There
And
we
I
go.
was
That's how we
like, I
connect.
want to have her on my show because you guys need to hear about this stuff. And it's interesting because as I have different people on who are in the same world, we end up talking about something a little bit different. So there's always value, no matter how many times I have on somebody who's going to talk about perimenopause or postmenopause, there's always value because we're always going to hit a different pocket. Or maybe the pocket that we hit you've heard before, but now you're not the
Oh, it's
same
gonna click.
person you
Yes.
are when you heard it the first time. So now it might just click.
That's it. And the thing with the thing with women's health, with hormonal issues, with metabolism, with peri and postmenopause, these are such vast topics. And it's so individual because, as you know, every woman goes through it completely differently, experiences it completely differently.
Yeah.
So I think, talking about it, it should be talked about more and more and more.
Yes, because for the longest while, it's not something that women even spoke about, you know? So, I mean, growing up, some depending on your household, you never spoke about when you were going to get your period. And then it was like, oh shit, what happened? If you weren't learning about it in school. So then now all of a sudden you've adjusted to that. You've had this period for like eons. And then
Yes,
all of a sudden it's slowing down and nobody's talking about that either. And
absolutely.
everything that happens along with it as it slows down and then gradually it's gone. And for a lot of women, it's like, yes, I don't have a period anymore. But then they're like, oh shit. Now I got all this other shit I gotta deal with
Yes.
that nobody
Yes.
told me about.
Yes. Absolutely. And that's i- it's another massive conversation, but healthcare systems, because doctors are so overworked, they see, even if you go to your gynae or to your general physician, they probably will have 10 or 15 minutes for you.
Yeah.
So they're not going to walk you through all those things, even though theoretically, that's their job, because they should be educating their patients on their health. It's a massive part of women's health.
Right. So I don't know. Maybe if we had true health care and not sick care, then if the doctors don't have more than 15 minutes for you, then maybe they fill the gap. Not the doctors themselves, maybe, but they fill the gap with having classes and resources that they can send you to, and not all just stuff online, because online is great, because if there wasn't online I wouldn't be able to talk to you right now. But at the same time, there's something about being able to be in person and just feel. And I mean, because we can do this now, because I've
Yes.
got your vibe. But at the same
Yeah, right.
time,
Yeah.
if we're in person, it would still be a little
It's
different.
different. Absolutely. Well, and also it's worth noting that, internet is amazing. Social media is a great and powerful resource, but oftentimes I have, ladies coming to us and then just telling me, look, like I'm completely lost because on one website I'm reading that I should be eating this. And then on another website, I am reading that I should never be even going anywhere near that food, right?
Right. That part. And then his for the longest time, it was like, yeah, intermittent fasting is the best. And now it's like, no, it's not.
And at the same time, though, you will still find some influencers who will keep telling you that intermittent fasting is great because it fits their narrative or, their marketing, their brand, whatever. So I think it's also very useful for, like, I think the podcasts like this and content that's more kind of longer type of content, like podcasts or blogs or whatever, they're much more valuable because you can actually understand the situation and not just get like a
And soundbite.
bit. Yeah, that's it, because there's just more value to it.
Well, I am so glad that I found you and that, I was able to have you on the show. Thank you so much for being here. And
Pleasure.
I'm sure my audience loved everything you had to say, because I know I did. And if like attracts like, then it's all good, right? So again, if you guys want to beta test her app, DM her and just let her know. And
Would love to hear from you guys.
and so yeah, I am gonna let you go though, because you did tell me up front that you had to go. So it's been such a pleasure having you.
Likewise, thank you so much. It was very fun.